Okay. Hi, class. This is part one, chapter one. Information technology is pretty sophisticated and a big subject. So we will try to understand as much as possible about information technology and also trying to set up a system in a way to understand the changes in business information technologies. So this is the part one of chapter one, and we will do the part two, the chapter two, chapter one. I'm sorry. So let's start. Okay. So in this chapter, first of all, we'll be talking about basically the book is called Management Information System for the Information Age by Stephen Hagg. So if you like to get this book or download it, it's up to you. Also, I will supply you with the notes. Chapter one, we will be talking about the information age in which you live or we live in it and changing the face of the business. Now, in this, the outcomes would be define the MIS or Management Information System, and we will describe in this chapter the three resources within it: the people, information, and information technology. We're also going to describe how to use the break-even analysis to assess the financial impact of IT, but also I will show you what a regular consultant will be used to do such things also away from the book. Describe how the Porter 5 forces models to evaluate an industry. You always can learn this in the marketing and apply it to the also to the IT. Compare and contrast the Porter 3 generic strategies of and the RG framework as approach to the development of business and strategies. Now, as you know, cell phone is taking over. Lots of people right now they cannot then they don't know how to use a regular phone. So the usage in the old days in the hotels they had a plan in the year 2000. They use as an average of generating revenue. The rooms, telephones generate around $1,200 these years because of the cell phone is moving in and taking over everything of a regular phone is 178. We see lots of products that it goes away, a new product comes in replacing them, like the typewriter. There is no more typewriter now. You see people or a fax machine, very difficult to find a fax machine. So these are all has been replaced by more better technology equipment. Some of you guys probably um, will have a hard time to use or the next generation to use even the keyboard because they will be expecting a touching keyboard, not a regular keyboard. So the things is changing so much, and this is an example of how things is changing. Now, cell phone, dome phone revenues for hotels. As we said, the year 2000, typical hotel could budget an annual of revenue of $1,274 per room. They used to generate such a from making phone calls. The year 2009, typical hotel could budget an annual revenue of 178 only. So by 10%, 90% reduced, and the cell phone and technology of kind are transforming entire industry. But not only that, recently within the cell phone, things has been changing because of the, all these applications that you can communicate without making a long distance call. Some now is by standard general operators do not give you a long distance because they know you're not going to use that anymore. So because you have all these tools that you application that you can utilize for a long distance, like a WhatsApp and WeChat and all other applications that you can use for a long distance. So some operators now they don't give you a long distance unless you ask for it. So that's one of the changes within the system also. Now, question that I like to make you think of it. When was the last time you used a pay phone? I don't think you have used a pay phone. One day I was working in Montreal. I wanted to take a picture beside a pay phone just to know that one day it's going to go away. Nobody's going to go. And how often you have used a pay phone in the last year? So if you also need to use a payphone, would you know immediately where one was located? So the question is here, if you in Canada and you're trying to use a payphone, do you know one beside you or you know where it's located? I myself don't know where can I find one. The only reason I found one in Montreal because it was kind of a place near to my to my home. When was the last time you used a cell phone? That's always is done. People utilizing a cell phone 24 hours, some lots of side effects, lots of changing the shapes of the body, changing the shape of the communications. So a cell phone or or a mobile now is being used so much. So when you hear the word cell phone, it's basically you can tell it's a Canadian term, but or cellular, but in USA they use it mobile. So because of the technology in the early days when it came in Canada, so but the question is, when was the last time you used your cell phone? Probably now you're using it. How often you use the cell phone the last day? Try to keep the cell phone away. What you feel like you're missing or addicted to it. Anyway, so the introduction, you live in the digital age, whether you know it or not, or you want it or you don't. The American average American relies on more than 250 computers per day. So to do one average American work, there is a 250 computers get involved in doing his daily work. And according to the Time magazine, 40% of cell phone users whoa, stop having sex to talk to a phone call. So that's really pretty bad when it gets to that side of a life. And there is something got to do with that. Also, with this thing, we were seeing that 20 years ago because we were very much involved in telecommunication, and we knew the cell phone one day will be taking over life. How much do you rely on technology in your daily life? That's something probably I would advise you to try to have a control over it because technology should be a tool to get you better life and not itself target unless you work in the technology like I do. Now, MIS or Management Information System, in the old days used to call it BIS. This is when I took my undergraduate studies in a business information system. Later on, they start calling it MIS. Now, Management Information System planning for development, management, and use of information technology to help people performs all the tasks related to information processing and management. Um, Important field of studies and important business discipline. You will be probably exposed more about these management information system within once we move on with courses. MIS deals with the coordination and use of very important organizational resource, people, information and technology. Now, artificial intelligence is something a little bit less on people and more technology, but all altogether is has a three dimension: people, information, and technology. These are the dimensions that MIS deal with. Now, this three synergy among the three resources of MIS, these three things has to work together in order for you to have a successful business or work or life utilizing the technology. The synergy, how people can use information-based technology tool is to achieve a competitive advantage, is do things cheaper and faster, increase revenues, and innovate in new process. Now, intellectual asset hierarchies is first start with data, information, and business intelligence. We will spend one full chapter over BI and how it works later on. But keep in mind, things can be collected as a data, which is data meaningless. Information is if it's standalone. But when we get together and becomes data integration or RDBMS or related data together, it becomes information. And what you derive from this information is becomes a business intelligence. So data is a raw fact that describe a particular phenomena, such as a current temperature, the price of movie rental, or age. His age is 15, so what? His age is 50, so what? For what? So it's a pure data, it doesn't make difference. But information data, that information is a data that have a particular meaning within a specific context. For example, 5 o'clock, noon, afternoon, 50 years old, 50, majority 50 years old comes in shopping, for example, or come to the stores. That becomes an information for you. Now, information resource, information is often aggregated data that has a meaning such as the average age, youngest, oldest, customers, and histograms of the customers. So it is, if it stands alone, it's just a data, doesn't make sense. But when you put it together and then you want to see an average age, you do the calculation and you see the youngest one and the oldest one, that start becomes an information. Now, when you're talking about the uh, business intelligence is basically um, uh, the collective information about customers, competitive business partners, competitive environment. As we said, we're going to talk more about business intelligence later on and CRM on application wise and how more we will pick up some applications, start explaining what do they do for you to understand how these things works. Now, the business information or BI is information on steroids because you grab the information that you're seeking there. You're looking whether it's, there is a hypothesis and null hypothesis and try to find out collecting data from a different sources of database and then putting them together in order for you to understand better the situation. Business intelligence can help you make important and strategic decisions. And this is where the BI works really well. So the BI, for example, tells you the total sales for all customers on a plan A that amount 6,000. The total sale for all customers on plan B that much. The average age of customer preferring sales person, it gives you the information and the average. So it's extract multiple data, putting it together and gives you a new information that you would be seeking a combination of these information. Now, information resource quality, timelines. Timelines is very important for the information that you are seeking. Is when you need it, when you need to make that decision. You can be on the road and start looking for these information, or you can be in office or in a night. You have to have you have to have access to this information the time you need that. describing the right time period at when I'm going to need it and how long I'm going to need that, the information. The location. So as we said, no matter where you are, you might have an access to it. And from audio, could be text, could be animation, whatever the way the information comes to you, it has to be valid, and which is a credibilities. As always, when you are hitting, it gives you the same information when you're entering the same data. So it has to be valid and also gives you the credibility. It has the credibilities. And if you have something lack of any above, uh, this time, location, or form, or validities becomes a garbage in and garbage out because it's not going to help you to make a decision. Now, information resource flow. In this chapter, we're just going to go over it very quickly, but later on, we will be going deeply on each one of them. Information resources, flow of information. There is what you call the upward, which is describing the state of the organization based on transactions. Then you got what you call a downward, which is a strategies, goals, and directive that originated at the higher level. So you get the upward information, data collected, changing to information, might be changing to business intelligence, and downward is the rules and regulations. And then you get the horizontal, which is between different departments, a business, and then you got what you call outward, inward, or that communication that's happening between an organization and the supplier and the organization and the customers. So these are the four type of flow of information. Now, what it describe, what we have something called internal function or internal information, and it's about operational aspect of the organization. Then you have the external information, which is the environment surrounding the organization, the objective information, which is the quantifiable, describes something that is known, and then you get the subjective information, which is describes something that is unknown. The second part is people. People are the most important resources of any organization with a focus on technology literacy, information literacy, and ethical responsibilities. In the technology literacy, they should be aware of how to use these technologies. Information literacy, when they're looking at something, they should understand what's in it. And the ethical responsibility, I think everybody would know, it is something that you need to do things right and do the right things. Now, technology literacy, knowledgeable worker, knowing how and when to apply the technology. So when supposed to use it, just not to use technology for the sake of the technology is when you're supposed to use it as a for so that's one thing. The information literature knowledge worker usually can define the information needed, knows how to and where to obtain information, understand information, and act appropriately based on the information. So these are the process. He can define the information it's needed, what kind of information is looking. He knows how and where to obtain, then understand when you get to obtain the information, understand the information from it, that's all the data that you can see, and act according to that. The ethical part is the principle and the standards that guide our behavior toward other people. Now, in the ethics, is all of us love to be in this situation, but in the course of ethics, probably you will be going through this deeply. You want to be legal and ethical, but sometimes you do ethical, illegal, uh, hacking could be ethical, illegal, or could be unethical and illegal, for example. So there's so much and examples in the IT that you can look at it. But the most important one is all of us wants to be an ethical and legal uh, situation. Management information system, information technology, or IT, computer-based tools that based used to work with the information. So we have two part in the IT. One is the hardware and one softwares. Hardware is the physical devices that make up a computer, like the hardware, the screen, things that you can touch it. And the software, which is that's what I mostly specialize in, is set of instruction that your hardware execute to carry out a specific task for you. Now, in the hardware's information technology and overall hardware is can be the input devices, the output devices, the storage devices, the CPU and RAM, the telecommunications, and the connecting devices. The softwares could be the applications, softwares, system softwares, operating software, and utility software like antiviruses and disk optimization softwares. Now, the input devices is the tools for entering information and commands, like the keyboard is one of the input devices. The output device is a tool to see how the hearing and result, like probably the speakers. That's one of the output. The storage device is tool to store the data and the information there. Within the hardware, there is something called the CPU, which is the hardware that interprets and execute instruction. And RAM or random access memories is temporary storage information and software for the CPU. So these are the two main part of the hardware, which is the CPU, interpret and execute an instruction when you send the extension. And RAM is it brings all the startup tools for the application sits there. So when the CPU start requesting these information, will ignite the application and process it. Now, then there is what you call the telecommunication device is for sending information like a telephone or the connecting. And then you have the connecting devices like cable, post, and ports. Now, when it comes to the software, there is, as we said, there's two type of softwares. We're going to talk about it in the future, which is the application software enable you to solve a specific problem and perform a specific task, like a Word, like a payroll. You're doing inventories management, etc. Now, there is a front end software, back end softwares. There is what you call desktops or personal softwares. There is a enterprise software. So these are the different type within the application software. And then what you have a system software, which is handle task specific to the technology management, like the operating system, whether you're using Oracle operating system, RDBMS, or you're using DB2, or you're using antivirus. These are all operating system like Office, Microsoft, I'm sorry, is like an operating system. Now, we will go details of financial, how we do the financial impact of information technology, but in general here, regardless of the resources, you must always assess its financial impact. Why do we use the softwares? Because it save us money or make us money. So why we are using WhatsApp? Because we don't want to use a long-term, long distance calls. So it's saving us money and also improve our communications, for example. So regardless of resources, you must always assess its financial impact. Many times you will do so using the break-even analysis, which is you took it in economic, you took it in a managerial accounting, and it can be defined as the impact even analysis when it's going to be a break-even, the cost versus the revenue. Now, the break-even analysis consider and chart the following financials. We, as you know, you took it in the macro and microeconomy, is fixed costs you incur even if you don't sell anything, like you renting an office, but you are not utilizing it. That's a fixed cost. Variable cost when you have a machineries and start producing, so you need to put input there, some materials, raw materials to get a process. So the raw materials has a cost on them, which is the more you put, the more is the higher the variable cost. So the cost, variable cost, incurred when you sell something. And then the revenue is how much you sell one unit for. Basically, you have, as we said, fixed cost, which is uh, it is like doesn't matter whether you're operating or not, it's like fixed here. And then you have the variable cost, which is increases by increasing by producing more units because you're putting more units, more raw materials to produce it. And then you have the revenue. So as a startup, this is probably would be the loss where you don't have a zero revenue or 10 revenue or whatever. So here's the loss, and then you keep growing, and also the variable cost will be increasing, but it's not increasing as fast as your revenue. So eventually, at 500 units, you will be getting into a break even, where is revenue start at zero and increase by nine for each movie poster, for example, you sell. So the revenue is uh, uh, the total cost is made of fixed cost plus a variable cost per unit, and revenue is the price that you are selling. So when these are fixed costs and variable costs, you add them together equal with the revenue, then you have a break-even point, which is this one. Now, reducing a fixed cost with IT. As we said, you use the IT is for two reasons, whether you want to make more money, make more sales, better services, or you want to reduce your costs. In this case, the digital storefronts, for example, no physical retail space, and most of us now thinking of going online, trying to sell things, or because you don't have anything, which is that's called something called a drop shipping, as now the term is used, which is one of the way that you don't have anything to produce. You are just the main man, the middleman between the middle person between sellers and buyers. Now, then the other thing is telecommuting, which is probably fewer expenses related to the office space. So you buy the phone, you're utilizing the phone or the internet. So you're not, having an office and a place to see it. And then you have what you call a VoIP or voice over IP, which is you can use the internet for the phone calls instead of using regular long distance calls. Reducing a fixed cost with IT is a crucial, as we said, for using the IT. So here, where we have, probably if you don't have a place to rent, if you don't have a place to store your stuff, and you are only the middle person, then this fixed cost, as previous example, will be equal with zeros. So your cost will be only made of variable cost, and your revenue will be from a startup can be more than zero or negative. Now, reducing variable costs with IT. Virtual good, because of they are digital, there is no cost for example, to duplicate and sell it again and again. And this is where the lots of the profits happening. When somebody develop an application, it can resell it again and again, and there is no cost in it. And what you call a crowdsourcing, use a non-paid and non-employees to create some kind of value, as we saw in the drop shipping. So two ways of doing, reducing variable costs within IT. Now, reducing variable costs with IT is you reduce the variable cost, your break even point occurs sooner. And the reason is, let's say, as we said, you made a software, and this software can can be copied again and again and sold. What Microsoft does, what Apple does. So there is no cost on it. So your variable cost is is almost zeros, in probably a CD or something like that, or USB. On other hand, if you are into food processing, food industries, you're still going to need a raw material to make bread. So there is a variable cost in the food industries, but very minimum in variable cost and fixed costs in the IT. So increasing revenue with IT. Recommendation: energize to drive the complementary sales, long tails economics to sell product services that are too expensive for a physical store to carry. So you put it online, and physical store only carry what they can sell in a large amount. But if there is a small amount, you can order it online. And because of the fixed cost, because they don't want to bring things and put it on shelf for a few months. Hopefully somebody will, because this is a money is on the shelf. So this is the end of the chapter. I just don't want to have, because it's the first class, don't want to have to have a tough class on you. That's the first part of the chapter. Thank you very much. And